And welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Saturday morning, close to coming on to the afternoon, with 12 minutes to the top of the hour of midday here in Uganda. I hope all of you are doing well. We are late. Had some morning errands to run, some morning work that I was assigned to do that sort of kept me away or kept me away for the last couple of hours. So I was unable to get here on time. Nonetheless, we are here. We will keep it short, but nonetheless, we will still engage in regards to what is making the rounds in the world of football. Today, we will be discussing Gennaro Gattuso's comments in the aftermath of their 2-0 victory against, I think, Moldova, in which left them needing at least to beat Norway by 9-0 for them to qualify directly to the World Cup, to the next edition of the World Cup. Now, it does appear that for 3 consecutive qualification campaigns, Italy are destined to play to go through the playoffs. And in the last 2 occasions, they've not made it to the World Cup. So it looks like, yes, Robert, I can't stay. I've got a rugby match this morning. Hi, LFC. Always a pleasure to see you around. We wish you the best of luck in your World Cup game. In your rugby game that you have today. But thank you so much for managing to chip in and liking the broadcast. Always, find time to do the needful. So we do appreciate you on that front, and we wish you the best of luck in your game today. So, I do not think. Okay. Now, I do not think there will ever be a time in any discipline in life or in any sphere of life where we have rules that are suitable for everybody, rules that everybody thinks are fair to everyone, because always you have rules being made and a certain subset or a certain facet of the community feels hard done by the rules, or they feel the rules are not fair to them, and that's completely understandable because in a world that is overly democratic, it's a majority over minority. And so that means that you have a minority group of people, whether it's 1 person out of 10, or whether it's 2 people out of 20, or 4 people out of 100, whatever the sample space is for that number, it does form the minority group. And always you'll have the minority feel and not listen to. Nima Lipcha says, hi. Hi, Nima Lipcha. Why are you joining us from this beautiful morning? Welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is my name, and I do come to you live from Kampala, Uganda. It's Football Tribe is a sports channel. It's a football channel. We get to discuss what is making the rounds in the world of football and things in that line. So as we speak, we are in the course of the international break, and respective countries are playing, particularly, predominantly in the World Cup qualifiers. Hi, Oregon. Duck says, hi, I'm from San Diego. San Diego, California, USA, it's 12:45 a.m. Well, it's 11:46 a.m. in the morning, not in the night, in the morning. So for us, it's already Saturday. But thank you so much for chipping in there, Duck from San Diego. Please do like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel. But thank you so much for chipping in. So, in the wake of Italy's faltering, Gennaro Gattuso seems to be of the view that FIFA should change their qualification process for the World Cup. Now, the 4-time champions, like I've said, following their victory, which came really, really late in that game, because they took at least 88 minutes to find the breakthrough in a game that you thought they should be winning, not easily, but at least by some measure, comfortably. I gave you a like. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Much appreciated, my brother. But if you can go ahead and also subscribe to the channel, I really, really appreciate it a great deal. So when you have a 4-time World Cup champion, I mean, needing that much time to find the breakthrough against a team that ordinarily you would you would you that ordinarily you think they should be beating up against easily or quite comfortably in Moldova, then the question for me is less about the process than Italy needing to fix their own house. And they've gone some direction to that effect. We know that the Italian national team part ways with Luciano Spalletti, and he has since joined Juventus as the head coach or manager, whichever the title you may want to brand him. But in the wake of that, the Azzurri appointed Gennaro Gattuso as the head coach. Now, is it a decision that I thought is the best decision for Italy? In my personal opinion, I do not think he is the elite manager that the Italian national team need, Now, of course, they've gone through a series of managers because I think Luciano Spalletti preceded Roberto Mancini, who had guided them to the triumph of the of the Euro 2020 at the tournament that was played in 2021 due to COVID. Now, replacing him with Luciano Spalletti, he had just come from a leading Napoli to the Scudetto. So it felt like a good move. But unfortunately for them, things did not work out the way they had hoped they would. And they ended up parting ways with him. Again, that's an okay decision because they are trying to fix a house that they think is divided, or a house that is, or a group of people that is not performing to their own expectations. I mean, we're talking about the four-time champions of the world. The last won the competition in 2006 when they beat up against France in the finals, needing penalties to do that, on their way to that. Now, they did beat up against Moldova by 2-0. Now, that in itself, given that the context of the game, that it took 88 minutes to find their opening goal, and I think the first minute of stoppage time to get their second is not the kind of result that tells you that Italy must be at the World Cup. Now, on paper, by leaps and measures and bounds, they will measure way higher than many teams that will have qualified for the tournament. But the thing about qualification is that it's a sieve to say that whatever goes through this sieve is what does qualify to be at the bottom of the sieve, to land in whatever pool or bucket that we have at the bottom of the sieve. And whatever remains up then does not qualify to be below the sieve, So the qualification process in its own nature is to sieve out. And those who perform best in the qualification phase are the ones that get to the final tournament, to the final showdown. It is not guaranteed that whoever qualifies will be a much better team than those that did not qualify. No, that's not a given, because you could be very good in the qualifiers, but then suddenly you get to the tournament and you're not at it for whatever reasons that could be, It's just it is the nature of sport. It's the nature of sport in all spheres of life, be it in lawn tennis, be it in basketball, be it in football, be it in pool table, be it in netball, be it in futsal. You go through a certain process, be it in cricket, be it in rugby, because even at the final tournament, there has to be only one champion. And for all of you that are not champions, you'll have graded yourself at a given series of positions. For example, there will be 12 groups from group A to, I think, group H, and in those 12 groups, only one team can lead each of those groups. Only one team can come second, because even if you're tied on points, certain factors will lead you to be third. And as we know that out of the 12 groups, 2 teams will be taken from each group to go for the round of 32. And then we will come back through those respective groups and we say, who has been the third best to help us get the 8 teams that joins the others. And we go through that. When we get to the knockout stages, it's a 50-50. If you do not kill the game in normal time or in extra time, penalties are a 50-50. Why? Because a lesser team could win the penalty shootout and a much bigger team will be knocked out. Why? Because they did not take care of their business in normal time. But also in normal time, you can have an underdog upset a giant. We've seen this time and again. It's the nature of sport. It's a one-off game. It's not a kind of round robin to say, yeah, we'll meet at home. We'll meet you in the return leg. You get. So if Cameroon come up against Brazil and they beat them by a goal to nil, a goal scored either in the first minute, at the end of the first half, or at the start of the second half, or at the tail end of the game, and they win the game by 1-0, it will matter less how big Brazil are a football country, that they have 5 World Cups. It won't matter. What will matter is the final result to say Cameroon won against Brazil. So Gennaro Gattuso makes reference back to the 1990s, where you had 2 African countries representing the continent, he says, and then in 1994, where you had 3. And he seems to be questioning why suddenly Africa has 9 teams. I mean, when you go, I do not think Africa partook in the first World Cup that was played in 1930. I do not think they partook in that. It's just what it is. Now, football or sport advances to become all-inclusive or to become inclusive to a certain extent. That's why we had a review that took us from 32 teams to now 48. We did not start with 32 teams in the history of the World Cup. Kelly says, let me hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Kelly says, hi. Hi, Kelly. Good to have you join us on this beautiful morning for our broadcast. So, in other words, as the competition or as the tournament has gone on to expand, different continents have been accorded different numbers. Now, you have a continent in Africa that has, 54 nations? Previously, when the competition was still of 32 teams, we only had 5 slots. And again, the qualification process was tight as you would have, the ropes that hold a ship to the dock, So, FIFA went into review and expanded this tournament to 48 teams. Now, going from 38 to 48, the addition of another 16 teams meant that distributively, all footballing continents were to get more slots. Now, we cannot wake up and say just because Italy, by their own pedigree, are better than all African countries individually, if not all African countries combined, by the measure of history of the competition of the World Cup in terms of their own performances, to wake up and say, yeah, I think we should change the rules so that somehow, if Italy are not at top of their group, then they should be finding a way to qualify. Just because Africa has many, slots, the two have zero correlation. Because even if we wake up and let's say Africa had its slots reduced from 9 to 8 or from 9 to 7, and then maybe a few slots are added onto Europe, there's no guarantee that Italy will still qualify for as long as they do not meet the qualification criteria, they will still not qualify. So I think it is less about the rules and more to the failures of Italy as a national football team. Now, again, by their own pedigree, in the history of the World Cup, Italy are miles and miles away better than Norway. But at this point in time, Norway is proving to be a better footballing country than Italy. It's that simple, It's that simple. Now, let me get you some of the comments and from what he did say, because things have not been at the very best. Now, Norway won their game, and they sit top of Group I, with just a game left to play. I think they have about 21 points, so they're about, Now, with 7 straight wins, of course, including a 3-0 victory against Italy. Now, the 3-0 victory by Norway against Italy was a surprise to me, Why? Because, again, Italy, historically, by pedigree, by footballing talent, are the better team. But on that given day, Norway were better. Alexander Soroth, Brad Erling Haaland, the Martin Odegaards of this world were the better side than the Azzurri. And it is what it is. It's the nature of sport. Now, their vastly superior goal difference, that's Norway. When you look at their group, Norway's dominance of that group, and I mentioned this I think on Tuesday or Wednesday thereabout. We're talking about this game because they played on Thursday and beat up against Estonia by 4-1. Brad Erling Haaland and Alexander Soroth scored a brace each in that game. Now they lead the group with a goal difference of 29. Now Italy, because they've scored 33 goals and conceded only 4. Italy have scored 20 goals and conceded 8, giving them a goal difference of about 12 goals. So that means, in fact, if you subtract the 12 from the 29, what you're left with is a whooping 17 goals, for which Norway are better than Italy. Italy are second in the group, ahead of Israel, ahead of Estonia, ahead of Moldova. Moldova at bottom of the group. Now, Europe is awarded 16 qualification places by FIFA for the 48 teams in the World Cup. Now, 48 minus 16, the difference is 32. That means the rest of the world shares 32 slots. South America, that has, I think, 10 countries, gets 7 slots. 6 are direct slots, and the 7th team has to go through, I think, a pre-qualification round. Now, but with the playoffs looming once again for Italy, Gattuso thinks suddenly we should have a change of rules just because they're faltering. Like I've said, they're currently 9th in the FIFA World Rankings. They missed out on the edition of 2018 that was in Russia. They missed out on the 2022 edition that was in Qatar. Now, again, to my surprise, because in those respective World Cups qualifications, they could not make it at the top of their respective groups. So they had to go through a playoff. In 2018, or prior to the 2018 World Cup, they played against Sweden. They lost the playoff. They played against North Macedonia for the 2022 World Cup pre-qualification. They lost out. But at the time, we're talking about the European champions who had beaten up against England on penalties in the finals to win the competition, but could not make it in the qualifiers for the World Cup. Now, they cannot qualify directly just because they are champions of Europe, because that's not what the rules say. We cannot wake up and say, because Spain are the champions of Europe, then they get to qualify directly, until we amend the rules to that effect. Nor do we expect the champions of Africa in Ivory Coast to just qualify directly. They too had to go through a playoff. Unless you're the host of the tournament, you do not get a free ticket to that. You do not get a free ticket to that. So, Gennaro Gattuso said, in my day, the best group runners-up went straight to the World Cup. Now, this is because they're second. Now the rules have changed. To change the rules, you need to tell those who organize these tournaments, Italy's record of 6 wins in qualification, you'd have to ask the people who make the groups and the rules. In 1990 and in 1994, there were two African, in brackets, 3 qualified in 1994. So, in other words, in 1990, 2 African countries represented the World Cup, and you had 3 in 1994 edition. Now, there are 9. It's not a controversy, he says, but there are difficulties, and we know it well. If you look at South America, where 6 out of 10 teams go directly to the World Cup and the 7th heads into playoffs with a team from Oceania, it does give you regrets and certain sadness. That is the disappointment. The system needs to change. I do not know change to what effect, because like I said, and this talk about winning 6 games in the group that they have won, because they played 7 games, they've won 6. Now, by the virtue of the fact that they've won 6 out of 7, makes them second best to Norway that one has 7 out of 7. If you're in a class and you sit for an exam and one student gets 100% and you get 99%, that means that student is better than you by 1 mark. And if the next stage requires that we take only 1 student, it doesn't matter that you are faulted by 1 mark, because the rules say only 1 goes. Now, is Gattuso trying to suggest that, for example, if you come second best in a group and you have 6 wins out of 7, and let's say you have a team in a certain group from Africa who are top of their group, who should be qualifying directly but have not managed as many wins as you, that you should then have advantage over them? Absolutely not, because Africa play within the African qualifiers. Europe play within the African qualifiers. It's at the big stage where all continents come together and meet. And then at the end of the day, we get the champion. So the champion will be either from Europe, will be from South America, can be from Africa, never have been from Africa in the history of the tournament, can be from Oceania, can be from North America, has never been the case, can be from Asia, has never been the case. When you look at the previous World Cup winners, the reigning champions are Argentina from South America. In 2018, the champions were France from Europe. In 2014, the champions were Germany from Europe. In 2010, the champions were Spain from Europe. In 2006, the champions were Italy from Europe. In 2002, the champions were Brazil from South America. In 1998, the champions were I think, what, Italy? 1998 World Cup, World Cup winners. Yes, you remember that game that ended 3-0, the winners were France from Europe. France beating up against Brazil by 3-0. Now, we cannot wake up and say that 4 years later, when you've had all the time to prepare and qualify, that suddenly because you have the pedigree, you should be qualified, or just because you have many wins in your group. It doesn't work that way. Let me give you this scenario. For example, let's use the example of league football. Let's say you're in the Premier League. You play 38 games. You win let's say you're Liverpool. You finish second. You win 30 games. You lose 8 games without drawing. And Man City or Arsenal are champions. They are top of the table. They win 29 games. They draw 5 games, which puts them at about what? At about 92 points. It leaves you at 90. That means they are the better team, but you won more games. You just lost more than they did because they drew some of their games. The points dictate. That criteria of qualification has 0 qualms whatsoever. So for me, I take no issue with the qualification process. In any case, how many times have we gone away in a game and felt hard done by the referee's decisions? Because sometimes in sport, it is not your lack of effort that gets you beaten. Sometimes it's a poor officiation. Should we get rid of referees? No, we correct. We critique. How many times have African teams felt hard done by certain decisions in games? We go back to 2010 when Ghana were being knocked out by Uruguay. We know what happened. Luis Suarez handles the ball, penalties awarded, Gian misses it, blah, blah, blah. He's never been loved. As unsporting as his actions were, Uruguay are the ones that advanced to the semifinals. So I don't know what Gattuso wants the world to do for Italy to get the World Cup, but they must earn their place there because they are up against Norway in their final game. They need to win it by whole loads of goals, which I do not think will happen. For Norway, they're going to qualify for the World Cup for the first time in 28 years. Italy will need to go through the playoffs. But again, that's another window of opportunity. Let them take their chances and win a game of football and qualify, and we will welcome them to the tournament. What good is it for Italy if they go to the World Cup and finish bottom of their group? They will have qualified. Would that make them any prouder that, yeah, we went, but we finished bottom of the group? Because that can also happen. Like I said, football, whereas pedigree can be a factor, no, sometimes you get beat with your pedigree. You've historically been good, but in recent times, you haven't. You remember Spain, after winning the World Cup in 2010, when they qualified for the 2014 World Cup, what happened? They could not make it out of the group stages. But we could not sit here and say, I think the rules are unfair. How does the reigning champion not even make it out of the group stages? It doesn't work that way. Hi, Edu Aki Oko. Hi, how are you doing, my brother? Good to have you on the broadcast. Although you've joined us at almost the tail end of it, as we discuss Gennaro Gattuso's frustration and our comments, because for him, he wants the rules changed for the World Cup qualification, just because for the third consecutive time, Italy are bound to be engaged in the playoffs for the World Cup. Basically, that's what he wants. He's saying, I think we are tired of failing to qualify directly. We are constantly playing playoffs. In 2018, we had to go through a playoff, which we failed to win. That was against Sweden. We lost out. The subsequent World Cup 2022, we played against North Macedonia. We couldn't make it still. We got beat, and we didn't make it to the final tournament. And it's becoming to be a routine. Now, therefore, we should amend the rules to ensure that at least Italy somehow qualifies. Now, it does not work that way. You can bring your suggestions to the table, and if the football administrators deem it necessary that your reasons are very valid, and then so be it, then you will go through and you have an amendment of the rules. But what he ought to know is that tomorrow, African teams will wake up and say, we've never won the World Cup. Why don't we amend the rules to say, at least there must be an African team in every semi-final to increase our chances of making it to the final? Should it be the case? Or should we stick to the sporting merit? I think Gennaro Gattuso will agree that sporting merit should suffice. That when you go in a tournament, when you go in a competition, let your sporting merit be what leads you to your triumph. Not through the back door, not through bad officiation that favors one side over the other. nothing whatsoever in that regard or context. Do let me know what your thoughts are, because allow me wrap it here. It's been a pleasure engaging with you this beautiful morning on those thoughts. But do not forget, World Cup qualifiers to continue. So do some international friendlies. Uganda Cranes will be up against Morocco on Tuesday. They beat up against Chad yesterday. Uche and Melvin Lorenzen scoring for the Uganda Cranes, one being a penalty. Dennis Chigundu, the goalkeeper, saving a penalty that game. Beautiful stuff. Also, the Uganda Cubs are in action today at the Under-17 World Cup there at the round of 32. Those boys will be in action. So do not miss out on the World Cup Under-17 games that will be coming your way today at the respective kickoff times. But Uganda Cubs are up against Senegal. Senegal are yet to concede a goal in this tournament. They made a goalless draw against Croatia, beat up against Costa Rica by 0-0, and beat up against UAE by 5-0. They are the only team that are yet to concede a goal in the competition. South Korea are up against England. Italy are up against Czech Republic. Japan will be up against South Africa. Germany, the reigning champions, take on Burkina Faso. Venezuela are up against North Korea. Austria are up against Tunisia. Croatia will be up against Uzbekistan. Brazil have already qualified. These are the teams that have already qualified for the round of 16. Brazil, who will be up against France. Those are already in. Switzerland, Ireland, already at the round of 16. Morocco, Mali, Mexico, Portugal. Those are already fixtures for the round of 16 that will be played next week on Tuesday. It's been a pleasure, guys. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Possibly, let's meet at night at 11 p.m. to discuss more from the world of football. Otherwise, it's always a pleasure coming to you here. And I want to say thank you so much to all our new subscribers. You keep us energized. Do not hesitate to leave us a comment. Go to the channel, check out all our content, share it. We did release a video yesterday worth 1 hour. Do go watch it and give me your thoughts down in the comment section. Otherwise, bye-bye for now. It's a pleasure for me.